Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone. In the afternoon, you may find us syndicated on a find it found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Podcast on thenewspastors.com. Pay attention to all the social media sites. You'll find us there as well. Facebook.com/DPZell. By the way, continue sending emails. You know that makes my day. And I'll be glad to do research for you. And any ideas you may have for as subjects for the show, you're the reason I do this. So this is why I take your email so hard. Donna@Donna'sEdge.com. Donna@Donna'sEdge.com. I'm talking to you today because a lot of you that are listening live in the North. A lot of you that listen live in the South. So today's show is going to be talking about gardening in the South. And believe me, I am definitely right here in the South. In Abbeville, South Carolina. So definitely appreciate you guys watching every chance that you get. Okay, so let's talk about it because in the South, in Abbeville, South Carolina is very much like Alabama, where I've lived before. In Charlotte, North Carolina, exactly the same. Because once June hits, I'm telling you, you've got hot, humid weather. Thunderstorms can just dash out at any time. So we're always on the look for that as well. But how do you garden? How do I maintain hot, humid weather? I went to the farmer's market in Anderson, South Carolina. Phil and I were there over the weekend. And so we met with a lot of folks who have their gardens, of course, in this neck of the woods. And so I asked them what was the main thing they had to fight when it came to gardening in the South. And they said, we dread June in a lot of cases because it's so hot and so humid, especially when you have lettuce and items like that in your garden, because if you don't have some sort of shade over those plants, I mean, it's a disaster. It'll just kill your lettuce. And then if it does make it, it's not good and crisp like it should be. So I gathered a lot of information from those folks. Also, I did take a Master Gardener's class, and that was through Auburn University a few years ago, and learned a lot that way. So we learned a lot about companion planting. And what was a success to me last year was my tomato plants. And so not exactly under the tomato plants, but close by the tomato plants. That's where I had my lettuce growing. And I'm just going to tell you, that was the most successful year of lettuce gardening I have ever had, because like I said, it would do okay in May, and then June hits and bang, it just disrupts it. So I found an article to you, and I went to google.com, and this is the AI overview, and it actually is very, very true to fact. So when I'm searching, searching for how to thrive a garden in hot, humid June in Abbeville, South Carolina, which applies to most of the South. So this is what they say: focus on deep, regular watering. Then we're going to get a little bit more precise about that in just a few minutes, preferably in the early morning or the late afternoon. This is another mistake I have made in gardening. I can write a book on what not to do. One of those things not to do is watering at high noon. It just kills a plant. I mean, it's just not helpful at all. You'd think, oh, you're going to refresh it. It doesn't work that way. So early morning, preferably, I prefer early morning or late afternoon when it's almost about to get dark outside. I definitely agree with this. Provide shade for heat-sensitive plants and use mulch to retain moisture and cool the soil. Choose heat-tolerant varieties and practice good soil management. Okay, so this is what we did when we planted the garden this year. We found this fabric, and it's like a weed control fabric. So I'm actually doing it two different ways. And so what I'm finding is the fabric works really good for my lavender. I mean, super good, because it keeps the weeds away, and the fabric also works kind of as an insulator. But before I get into more information about that, let me tell you something else we did. So we put the fabric down. I've got my lavender out there. We have the beans planted. We have potatoes planted, onions, shallots, and a few other things out there. Peanuts, by the way. And again, tomato, and a few pepper plants. So we set those out using the cloth, and which does remarkable, by the way, in controlling weeds. But let me tell you something else I found out. So we use that over just about a 20 by 30 area. Then just south of that, we went on ahead and planted just deep in the ground without putting without putting the weed cloth down there. I'll have to tell you what I love about the weed cloth is it does keep weeds away. Now, not 100%, because all it's going to take is one bird flying over, and you know what can happen when they fly over your plants. One seed from the poop of a bird can cause you a lot of weeds. And again, now it's not foolproof, so that can happen. But what I noticed is putting pine straw also helped. So when we put plants down, the weed barrier. And then we put the pine straw, because the pine straw also helps, again, just like AI said, it also helps in keeping moisture. So if you get one of those big rain, like that, it could rain, when you're not expecting it. One of those little clouds can come out of nowhere, and you get a drenching rain in the garden. So another thing that we found is water can be a good thing and a bad thing. And what I mean by that is if you have no water coming in, oh, that's bad for the plants. You're going to have to get out there with a hose pipe and spray it down, okay? And in a good 15 minutes on doing that. If you get too much, that's worse than not getting enough, because at least if you're getting no rain, you can control the water flow that comes in. So on the other side of the garden, where we did not put the weed control, I'm finding that the pine straw helps in weed control as well. So I'll let you know as the garden progresses. I'll let you know a little bit more about that. So we did another about a 20 by 20 on that one. And again, I'm noticing beans seem to thrive better, and tomatoes I don't know yet, because I planted some tomatoes early in the weed cloth. And by the way, when you are using the weed cloth, you need to cut like a little X, kind of something like that, with your scissors or whatever you're going to use to cut with, something like that. And then you need to open those flaps out so that you've got a hole, because if you don't do that, no moisture is going to get in. And so that was just another thing we learned a couple of years ago. Now let's talk about deep watering. Okay, you may need to make sure that you water these plants thoroughly, allowing the water to penetrate deeply to the roots, encouraging strong root growth. Now let me tell you how you do that. Okay, now if you just dig in the dirt. Now we have kind of a mixture of clay and sand, which is like the perfect gardening. However, I still add gardening soil to those plants, because this is my first year I've gardened in this garden. Okay, so we just moved here this winter. And so another thing I've learned is when you are adding gardening soil to your garden, you still got to have some of that Mother Earth. You still got to have some of that sand that's home to your home garden area. And what I do is I'll get a big bucket or whatever, and I'll put gardening soil, and then I also add manure. And cow manure is good, chicken manure, whatever you got, that's going to work. I mix that really good. And I also, and compost is probably the prettier word for that. And so you want to mix those things together, and then get some of your native soil. You got to put some of that also into that mixture. And what I'm finding is that three-way system right there works great. So I've dug my hole. I'm using some of that garden soil, some of the native garden soil into that mixture with the garden soil and with the manure. And I mix those three ingredients together, and then I just handfuls. I pour that into that hole that we dug. And then I put the plant in. Now I want to make sure that the roots are taken good care of. don't do it in the fast way. You need to be gentle to those roots, okay? Because the roots, without proper roots, you're not going to have a plant. It's going to be a sickly plant. It's going to be driven by bugs, and also, if you take good care of those roots, you're going to find if there are weeds around, that plant's still going to be able to tolerate those weeds, and it's going to fight. It'll be a fight now with your plant and with the weeds. It's going to be a fight, but your plant's going to win because you've taken good care of the roots. Okay, so that's extremely important. Okay, so I put those roots down into the ground with my mixture of soil. I don't cover it yet. Okay, because I still got more I'm going to add on top of that. Put the water in there and let it saturate. Now, let me tell you another thing about your soil that you have made, okay? Now, do a little test on your ground. Okay, dig a hole and then put some water in the hole. This is your test. And put water in the hole and see if that water sinks down into the ground. Okay, if it doesn't sink down into the ground, you've probably got too much clay. Now, if it sinks down into the ground too fast, well, then you've got soil. You've got sandy soil, and that's not really good either. That tells you that you need to add compost, and it tells you need to also add some kind of gardening soil. I'll tell you, the best gardening soil you can add doesn't come from Lowe's, and it doesn't come from any big store brand. The best thing you can do is start your compost pile now. Yeah, and by doing that, you want to add like a lasagna layer. So you want to put your cardboard, and you need to make sure now that the cardboard doesn't have any kind of a waxy look to it. Take all the labels off. If there's tape on there, take that off as well. Put it flat out on the ground that you're going to use next year, because I'm already planning next year's garden. So go ahead and put that down. And then when you mow your grass, get the grass that comes out of the lawn. If you've got a bagger, that's great. Rake up the grass and put that on top of the cardboard. If you don't do anything but layer that all summer, you got to put water on it now, because that helps with the decomposing down into the ground. You're not going to have to buy any garden soil at all. You'll be able to use that, and you will have the richest, most wonderful garden soil there is. Let's go into a commercial break. I want to talk a little bit more about what to do with your garden. We'll be right back.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. Or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Good afternoon. We're back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth definitely matters. We're talking about gardening right now, and I'm going to tell you it's my favorite time of the year, Christmas and then gardening time. So we're talking about your garden and what to do in the hot, humid, it's almost like crazy humid here sometimes. So we talked about deep watering. Timing is all important as well. Water in the early morning or the late afternoon, but early morning is best, is what I've found. Okay, now here's some methods you can use for watering. Use sucker hoses or dip irrigation to deliver water directly to the roots and minimize surface evaporation. Now, another thing I like to do, I don't just spray and water grass and everything else that could possibly come up. I direct that into, and by the way, if you have a shower, like that fits to your, I forgot what you call it, but it's a shower that goes under the hose pipe. If you put it on shower, it's going to not be so harsh and hard water forming. If you use like full blast, you're going to kill your plants. Make sure you use the shower function. And you need to be a good 2 feet away from that plant as well. But try to focus on the bottom part of that plant. Some people, when they, and I used to do the same thing, I would water my garden. I would think, I got to do the leaves and everything. No, you just get to the roots, because the roots are going to take care of the stem, and the stem is going to take care of the leaves, and then the leaves are going to take care of the fruit. So you just make sure that you get it saturated really good down in those roots. Okay, increase frequency when it's, especially if you start having a drought, which we could have at any time. Be prepared to water more frequently during prolonged heat waves, especially for container plants. Now, container plants, you're going to have to water them much more often than you do the regular in-ground gardening. Provides shade and perfection. This is what we're talking about, the shade cloth. Shade cloth is absolutely fantastic for your lettuce. And we have a little gazebo that Phil has put together for me. And so this is, my garden area is about an acre. And in this garden area is my getaway place. I mean, this is my solitude place. And Phil and I like to go out there in the early morning hours and just walk around the garden and see what it's doing. And it's just a good solitude. So if you have a high demanding job, gardening has got to be your place, okay? If you have your own business, a lot of headaches can come from owning your own business. But if you have that, you got a garden. It's going to give you some peace of mind. Okay, now let's talk about shade cloths. And you can use those shade cloths, especially for sensitive plants like leafy greens, to reduce the stress from intense sunlight. Another thing you can do, like I mentioned earlier in the segment, Another thing you can do is companion gardening. Now make sure that the lettuce doesn't take over the tomatoes or the tomatoes doesn't take over the lettuce, but there's going to be some shade coming in from that tomato plant. So you want to plant your lettuce a good 6 inches, 8 inches away from that tomato plant, okay? Because if you get too much shade, lettuce got to have some shade. And you're going to find that you're going to have it's going to be leafy, it's going to be solid, it's going to be crisp lettuce this way as well. But the shade cloth does wonders. Okay, now let's talk about windbreaks. So install windbreaks to reduce the wind damage and prevent excessive loss. Now, how can you do that? Okay, companion planting. I mean, when you do that. Also, if you have sunflowers, the stalk of a sunflower is like the best thing you can have for a windbreak. And so I'm keeping all of mine, then I'll be replanting my sunflowers again next year. So it'll get really hard. It's better than any cane that you can ever purchase. I mean, these things are tough and stout. Plus, as you're using it for a windbreak with your, say, your tomato plants, and you use jute or some kind of cloth, yarn is good to use, just to make sure everybody stands straight up, and especially good also for your beans, like your string beans and that kind of thing. And so if you'll get that sunflower cane, I call it, and put that into the ground, and then use it as a companion to hold onto those tomato plants, so that if a good wind comes by, it's not going to, it's how a lot of folks lose their tomatoes, is they're not using something as a windbreak, or the roots aren't really good and not good and stout. So we've had like several storms, and so far I haven't even put a windbreak on my tomato plants yet. And we have about 10 tomatoes right now on one of the tomato plants. And we walked out into the garden yesterday after a pretty big windstorm, and over the weekend we had some windstorms as well. I mean, it got like really dicey here. We actually had a tree down. But you know something? The tomatoes are still on the vines. Maybe because of structure of the root. So what happened was, this is the tomato plant. And so what I did is I laid part of the tomato plant down in the ground like that. So I had all of this right here growing as far as the stem. And all those little hairs that are on those tomato plants make roots. So that's going to make a good root system. Again, the roots are going to be the success of your garden, having good roots. Okay, weed control. We talked about weed control. We did talk about that. Regularly weed to prevent competition for water and nutrients. So you want to get, but again, you got a good strong root. Not to worry so much. As a matter of fact, I know people who have gardening who never take weeds out of the garden. I do think it looks prettier, but I mean, if you've got a strong stem, you don't have to worry so much about weeding. So if you've got a job and you just don't have time to do a lot of weeding, have good strong roots, and then you'll be okay. Okay, what about drought-tolerant options? Consider using drought-tolerant plants. Use those on a regular basis for limited water. Now, let's do additional tips right here. Okay, so avoid fertilizing during heat waves. Plants are more stressed during heat, so hold off on fertilization until temperatures cool down just a bit. And this is another thing I've seen people do, and it will kill your plants. Let's say Farmer Joe lives right down the road from you, and he has cows, and you get Farmer Joe's cow poop, and you put it out there. If you put that on your plant without putting some kind of something with it, like it could be gardening soil or something like that, you're going to kill those plants. Because what happens in the summertime when it gets hot, that poop gets really super hot, and it's going to kill those roots. It's just going to be way too much heat. So you've got the sun bearing down, and then you've got that fertilizer, cow poop, on your plants, and it's just going to kill it. And I've seen that happen a lot of times. Okay, let's talk about deadheading. Now, what is that? Remove spent flowers to conserve energy and encourage continued blooming. So if you have like tons of blooms on your plant, That's causing a lot of stress as well. And odds are, if you've got a tomato plant and it has, and it's probably, say, I don't know, 12 inches tall, and if you have a good 40 blooms on it, you'll get 40 little tomatoes. So what you'll need to do is take some of those off. Leave about half of those on there. And you're going to find that you have big, juicy tomatoes, and they're not those little wimpy looking ones that taste like you bought it in a grocery store. You know what I'm talking about? A grocery store tomato where it almost tastes like cardboard. That's what happens. Okay, let's talk about harvesting early, which is something, I mean, I can hardly wait, for my garden. I can't wait to get a tomato and have a tomato sandwich. And I'm one of those, I hate mayonnaise. I really don't like it, but for some reason on a tomato and banana sandwich, I want to slap it on there with lots of pepper. So harvest early, harvest crops like peas and potatoes while they are at their peak freshness. Now, how do I know when potatoes are ready to harvest? Because you can't see anything. You can't get a magnifying glass and put it down there in the garden and see what it is. The leaves are going to tell you the story. So you got all these really, really pretty leaves. They're really green. Don't touch the potatoes yet. Okay, they're still doing their job down there in the ground. When they start wilting and when they start turning brown, that means you got taters. So then you can go ahead and dig those up and have some French fries or some mashed potatoes or that good old potato salad. Okay, now what else can you do? You can collect rainwater. I have buckets sitting around all over the garden. I'm talking about big ones. And then if we start getting a drought, and maybe I just don't want to use the water hose, I've got those buckets just sitting right there, just waiting, okay, for that really nice rainwater coming down on the plants. Rainwater is better than any hose pipe any day, I'm just telling you. So you can collect rainwater for watering, especially during those dry, humid times. Okay, I still got some time. Okay, good. I've looked to see what time it is. Okay, now I've got some more ways that you can help your plant survive a heat wave. Okay, now we talked about, let me get right back here again. Let me go because I want to make sure I tell you about all this stuff right here. Okay, now I wanted to talk to you about the water hose, because in my past life, when I was much younger, I almost killed the garden because I was just out there and just watering everything and not really paying any attention to the force of the water coming out of the water hose. So for the water hose, it is a hose and it works. It's relatively lightweight, but it needs to be burly enough to take some abuse in the garden. And let me tell you about some abuse in the garden, things that I can do. Okay, if you have, let's say, oh my goodness, I found a weed. So you're out there and you're trying to dig up that weed and you just get your hose pipe and you just throw it out there. You're causing damage to it, especially if one of those really lightweight ones. By the way, I found I don't like those. The ones that they're really extremely lightweight, they can't take the way I'm harsh out in the garden. I accidentally, it looks like a snake and it's not a snake, and you hit your water hose. They can tear up just like that if you use a hoe on them, if you accidentally do that. They're lightweight, which is the only thing I like about them. Now, that versus a heavy-duty hose pipe. I'm going to take the heavy-duty one any day over the lightweight one, even though it's harder to manage, but let me give you a secret. Okay, I go out and I want to water the garden, and so it's heavy. I mean, it's just like I've turned the water on the hose pipe, and so I'm taking it out there and it's just really, really heavy. It's worth a trip back to don't turn the water on yet and go ahead and take the hose pipe out there. Go back, turn the water on. It's worth the trip, I'm just telling you, because that added water on there is going to make it heavy. And you're going to wish you hadn't done that. Okay, I'm going to have to go. My goodness, just as we're getting started. Thank you so much for watching Donna's Edge Talk Show. And you are absolutely awesome. Thank you for the emails. I love them. You are not bothering me at all. Continue sending emails. Donna@donnasedge.com. That's Donna@donnasedge.com. Can't wait to see you next time. Let me know about your garden and what you're doing and what works. Thanks.